one in Mississauga, it doesn't mean that you have one in Brampton, and even from the north to the south, because Mississauga is closest to the lake, you have a different pattern when it comes a little bit further north, where we're landlocked, and further up. Those were tools that we brought in to be able to have a very real, a very useful, and something that we can go back to our citizens. And then we work closely with our senior homes, long-term care facilities, our hospitals, agencies that work with the more vulnerable populations, the homeless, and we started developing communication links. And this study actually became something that everybody pitched in, and now it's a tool. It's something that we use on a regular basis. Every summer, we've been using it every last summer. A couple minutes, okay, so I'll run quickly. I want to give you just one example of a program. So we want to break out of our bottle. We need to get the vacuum, out of this vacuum, and we need to create links. And events like this are certainly a good situation. I strongly encourage that we have more of these, and we bring in, and I didn't talk too much about the private industry, but certainly there's a role there as well, and we need to bring them in. What we need to do is a few examples, and I want to talk quickly about one program we have developed in Brampton, which is we call the BEN, which stands for Business Emergency Network Program. And this program, we were talking about best practices. Hopefully this one does become. And this program is a joint effort between York University, the city of Brampton, the Canadian Centre for Emergency Preparedness, a nonprofit organization, and a couple of consulting firms that are working with us, which are in the business context. So the academics are coming in, and what we're doing is we're using students who are in the master's, in emergency and disaster management from York University to come in, and what they're doing is they're going into businesses. They're spending time in small and medium businesses to help them do their own business continuity plans. We're placing them through this connection, through this network that we're creating in various organizations, and they go through, because they have the knowledge, they've been trained on how to do business continuity, they have it, but they don't have the experience. So the students are gaining because they're getting the experience hands-on. And later on, when they do go into other organizations, they get a full-time job, they'll have a bit of experience on this. So the academic, hopefully, will link. Plus, after that, when they go back to the university, they understand the parameters and the constraints that the businesses have. So when they do research, they'll probably be able to better put it in words and translate it in a way that it works. We're connecting management, because management, we're getting mentors. We're placing these students, but we're also linking them with mentors that are in businesses, and that are in larger businesses, or that are in government, and they're mentoring. So they're getting a feel for what the student is going through, but also they're realizing that we need to know more about business continuity as well, and they're developing their own training. We're involving politicians, because we went to the Economic Development Committee of the city and made a pitch to them to get some funding and to get some help in this program, because what they see is that the more we get these businesses on board, and we get them ready and prepared to respond to, or survive or adapt to emergencies that will occur in our community, the better they'll be able to recover. And in the long term, it means maintaining our economic base as a city. So, and that's a language that my politicians can understand. If I tell them that we're going to have more businesses that are going to come in, they're going to stay alive after an emergency, and they're going to continue paying taxes, politicians, they understand that. And it's a program directly for the constituents, so they like that. The other aspect, let me just quickly...
just to wrap up.
Yeah. Okay, is that we're connecting with bureaucrats, we're changing from policy, we're actually having programs, we're not spending a lot of time in discussion, and we're connecting business people, which provide us tools and support. We've been at this program for about a year, and I'm going to wrap it up there. And just the rest was just a little bit. And we want to be able to expand this. We've tried it as a pilot project in Brampton, but with the help of York University, we want to expand it. We're now reaching out. We're going to the banks. We're looking at the bank, because the banking industry has a lot of interest in this, and we've started to talk to them because all of their commercial customers, the bulk of their commercial customers are small and medium-sized businesses. And if we go to the banks and you say, you help us do this, we're going to make sure that all the businesses that do business with you are better prepared to cope, and they'll continue to do business with you after the emergency. And you know what? The banks are interested. They're looking, and they're ready to consider funding project and sponsoring us in order to expand this. And next year we're starting to look at 2 other communities before we roll it out more of a provincial or national program. We've got Hamilton and Guelph, which are very close to Brampton, that are interested in the program, and we're starting negotiation discussions on how to expand it. In conclusion, let me just quickly, this is, what I want to say is that adaptation, it's an action word. I think if we want to put recommendation, we need to have the discussion, I agree, but this discussion needs to have an orientation to which we're going to take action. We're going to do something with it. You know, we need to create programs that are kind of, it's not just creating ideas and concepts. It's a team effort. It can't be just the emergency managers, and it can't be just the academics. And we need to bring in all of these groups, and I'm really proud to see what we're doing here. You know, this is great, and we need to have more of these. And it's needed now because, you know, Heather was saying, you know, 2015 is when the building code is going to be changed. Well, you know what? 2015 is way down the road. It's extremely long. We need to get these policies and these plans and these programs acting now. We can't wait another 5, 10 years. It's changing too fast. So adaptation, we need to make it a now event. So that's in a whole, giving you hopefully a little bit of the problem, but also hopefully giving you some ideas on solutions. And the other aspect also is that I feel that communities and municipalities need to be at the center of this. Because that's where the link is at. The emergency managers, and yes, a lot of them are part-time and all, but still, the communities are where the programs are going to translate into actual actions. Thank you very much.
So, I guess we're having trouble with the clocks today. I'm just going to take 2 questions for Alain, and then we'll move into the next public group discussion. Tim.
Maybe this is better for the group discussion, but my name is Tim Tuccaro, and I'm a physician scientist, faculty of health sciences, SFU, very interested in public health response to climate change. And I was intrigued by the team that you described for the heat events in Toronto. In our studies of municipalities' response, there's always bureaucratic hurdles having the right hand talk to the left hand. And it sounded like in Toronto you got around that when you set up the heat networks. You had many different jurisdictions talking. Who took the lead on that? Do you have any lessons learned that you could impart to us?
Eventually the lead came from the Peel Public Health. So Region of Peel regroups the City of Brampton, for which I'm responsible, the English Banner, and the City of Mississauga, which is to the south of us, and the Township of Caledon, which is more rural, which is to the north of us. And Region of Peel Public Health was the leader, but before they accepted to take the leadership, they need a lot of prodding. It took a little while to get going, and we had to have a lot of questions and public requests to have something, because people were feeling that, you know what, you have a heat alert. There was a heat alert already existing in Toronto. But you have a heat alert in Toronto, but it doesn't mean the same thing when it's in Peel. And from that discussion and those pressure, eventually we went to public health and said, help us make, give us a tool. We need to have a way to warn public and to do something, know what to do about it. And eventually public health, Peel Public Health said, yeah, we'll do it. And we had the medical officer of health at the time, who was very proactive and said, let's do it. Got the money, the funding to do the study, and then regroup all the partners and all the agencies that are involved in some way of various social services agencies together to say, here's what we're finding, and here's how it's going to impact people, and here's some ideas of things that you can do as agencies in order to adapt or help your people for which you're responsible.
And was the funding for the communications hardware? Or what was it?
Most of it was public information. So we did a lot of work with our websites. We have a software that takes all this data that was developed for us by the University of Colorado, a researcher there that developed it for us, and the software takes in these 20 different parameters, and from that tells us where this has a certain chance of increasing mortality. And that's really the parameter. If it's going to risk increasing mortality, then we have to send out a heat alert. And then the heat alert itself is done through a number of networks, so through the media, through websites, direct emails to the various agencies that are responsible for these small groups or these groups of vulnerable population, a number of communication areas. The funding itself was really for the research and a little bit for the software that came with it. That's really all the cost. And then the rest was done through consultation and working together. Very minimal cost, actually, if you consider.
A very pragmatic question. I was recently with the head of civil defense in Peru, who was anguished about the topic of climate change and how it would influence what he'd had to do. He's a general. It's a typical structure for responding. How do you guys talk in your office about climate change? How does it influence your talks about budgets in the future, increasing facilities? What is the nature of the conversation you have?
And I won't pretend that we've got it right. It's still a lot of negotiation. It's still very difficult to do. We have committees. We have an emergency management committee at the city level that meets on a quarterly basis, and we look at various issues. And we look at the terrorism and the pandemic. Yeah, that's part. It's on the agenda. But we also look at the extreme weather. We review past events, and we try to get some data and try to make some sense of it. And then that's a steering committee that reports to senior management. And then regularly after our meetings, we come up with a report and we send that to senior management. So our senior management committee. The problem we have is it's very difficult to translate that into an actual action. One of the examples is we've been trying to get our public works people to look at the storm sewer. Our storm sewers are not geared to these extreme events. And I know there's other issues with the day-to-day, but those extreme events will cause flooding. Our flooding situation is not related to water courses. Our flooding risks are related to our storm sewers that can't handle these intense rains. And we're having lots of basements that are getting flooded because our storm sewers can't do it. But we try to go to our public works people and try to convince them of that. And it's very difficult because every half inch of these tubes are going to be costing so many $1 million more. And you can't take the ones that are already in, you can't take them out. That's unthinkable. It's just too costly. You only wait until they break down. When they break down, then you'll replace them. And you'll probably replace them with exactly the same thing you had before. Insanity clause. So it's difficult. I'm not saying we're making a lot of progress. We're making a little progress here and there incrementally. But I think that's where, if we get this incentive brought in by various players into it, certainly the insurance industry does have a good interest there, and we're looking for it. Certainly the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction is a place where I go once in a while and talk to my public works people, tell them, and because in the end it's going to cost the insurance industry. So I'm trying to regroup all these people and trying to get a little bit from everyone here to try to go and get action. It's not necessarily easy.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Gordon now, and then we'll